We're going to analyze this game between Ohio State and North Carolina from two different perspectives. First, we're going to look at the stats, and then we're going to look at the video. Just first, I want to mention that everything you see in this video, from the code window that created this timeline to the output window you see on screen now, there'll be links in the description to see video walkthroughs of these windows, as well as purchase links. So if you want to check them out, they're there for you. But first, we're going to look at the stats. Now, stats always tell a story. And these stats, in my opinion, tell 3 big points on how Ohio State dominated North Carolina in this game. They won by 25 points, and we're going to see why. So the first big point that I see from these stats is Ohio State's massive strength in the defensive rebounding and general defensive strength around the rim. So if we just look at the raw defensive rebounding stats, we can see that Ohio State out-rebounded North Carolina on their defensive end from 34 defensive rebounds to 12 Carolina offensive rebounds. Now, generally, you're going to get more defensive rebounds than offensive rebounds, but that's a 22 rebounding difference when you compare that to 11 offensive rebounds for Ohio State compared to 16 defensive rebounds for Carolina. So, obviously, Ohio State really dominated on the boards, which you can see also from the total rebounds. Now, there's some really strong individual rebounding performances, especially on defense. We've got 6 by Caleb Wesson, we've got 8 from Andre Wesson, and we have 5 from Washington, which is a guard, which for a guard is quite a lot. And we'll see in the video later that a lot of those defensive rebounds from Washington led to great offensive opportunities for Ohio State. Now, when we look at the Carolina shooting performance, we can also see how Ohio State dominated around that defensive area. Around the rim, they were only 5 for 17 for 29.4%, which is quite a low percentage considering it's such a high efficiency position to shoot from. And then when you look at from different types of shooting types, they were only 1 for 4 on post-ups for 25%. They were only 3 of 9 for drives, which again is usually a shot type that results in shots from around the rim. And then putbacks are only 1 for 6, which is again another usually high efficiency shot, considering it's usually unexpected and right around the rim, which they were only 16.7% from this area. So that's again another indication that Ohio State was really strong around that defensive glass, defensive rim area. Now, the other reason that I see that Ohio State dominated this game was their overall team depth. So if we just look at the points, for example, they had 4 players in double digits. So Washington got 18 points, CJ Walker got 10 points, Liddell got 12, and Caleb Wesson got 10. They also had players get 8 points in Carden and 9 points from Young. So again, they had a wide variety of scorers all across their team, from starters as well as to their bench. And speaking of their bench, if we look at the advanced stats, click Advanced and press Execute, we can see that it was not actually just Ohio State starters that performed really well. It was actually more of their bench. If we look at their starters, Muhammad was only +2 and +. Washington, despite his really strong shooting performance, was only +1. And Wesson was only +4. However, if we look at their bench players, Liddell was +21, Carden was +30, Andre Wesson was +25. So it was actually their bench players that came on who performed really well offensively and defensively and really won this game for Ohio State. Now, the last thing that we'll look at in the stats is Ohio State's quarters dominance. By that I mean, where were they the strongest in terms of when did they really perform in terms of game time. So if we look at the third quarter, click third quarter, Carolina's already picked, so it's going to give us their third quarter stats. Now, I know college basketball is usually cut up into wars, or 10 wars, 5 in each half, just based on when the timeouts are, but I've got this in quarters just for a wider range or wider sample size. So in the third quarter, Carolina was only 5 of 14, and they scored 15 points. When we compare that to Ohio State, we can see that they performed much better. Once it loads, they got 27 points, which is almost double Carolina. They were 10 for 18 in field goals, 55.6%. And that's only a small sample size. They were 50% from 3. So again, that's after that halftime adjustments from the coaching staff. Coach Holtman must have obviously put in some sort of stuff that we'll see in the video soon. and they scored 27 points, really putting Carolina away. So from these stats, we saw three main themes. Ohio State's general strength around the defensive glass or defensive rim area from those total rebounding stats, especially defensive rebounds, individual performances, team performance, and Carolina's really poor shooting performances in those around the rim areas like drives, putbacks, and post-ups. We can see that Ohio State had great team depth based on those wide point spreads of who scored points, a lot of players in double digits as well as plus minus, and we can see that Ohio State really dominated the half in that third quarter. So now we'll check out the video and see how they did it in game tape. Now on to the video. Now from initial observations from this game is that Carolina wanted to play a very modern defense. And by that I mean they really let Ohio State shoot mid-range shots, but they let Ohio State shoot mid-range shots because they really shut down heavy on the perimeter. They applied heavy ball pressure, shutting down Ohio State's three-point game, which is really good, with Dwayne Washington and Andre Wesson being really good three-point shooters. They also shut down and collapsed heavily as soon as Ohio State had any sort of paint touch. So as soon as Caleb Wesson got the ball anywhere near the rim, 3 or 4 Carolina players would converge on him to shut down any action from that area. So they let the mid-range shot fly, but shut down the perimeter and shut down shots under the rim. And I'll show you a couple of examples what I mean. So this is the first possession of the game for Ohio State offensively, and you'll see that Carolina are going to apply heavy ball pressure on the perimeter. They're not letting any of Ohio State's three-point shooters get loose. They're shutting down that initial on-ball action, and as a result, as soon as CJ Walker gets that paint touch, Carolina players converge on him and they get that travel. Next possession. Next possession, baseline out of bounds. Again, they're going to shut down that three-point shot, especially Dwayne Washington, who's Ohio State's best three-point shooter. Caleb Wesson gets a paint touch. Carolina players converge on him to make sure he doesn't get any sort of action going in that area. Shut down that three-point shot. 2 Carolina players converge on CJ Walker on the perimeter. And as soon as, again, Caleb Wesson gets that paint touch, there's 3-4 Carolina players there to shut it down, and they get the block. Ohio State actually struggled offensively to begin this game quite a lot. They had 15 turnovers in the game, with a lot of them going on in that first quarter of this game. So Carolina's plan was actually working really well to begin with. Final one, again, a half-court possession. Carolina hedged heavily at mid-on balls, especially early in the game. As I said, they were going to let that mid-range shot fly. Here you can see there's Carolina players just kind of stepping off Dwayne Washington, letting him shoot that shot, and that's why, because it's a low percentage shot. Shutting down heavily on Andre Wesson again so he doesn't get a three-point shot, again closing that perimeter down. He's going to drive to the rim. Again, Carolina players all around him, but as a consequence, Dwayne Washington gets an open shot. But you can see what I mean by the problem being that Carolina was going to shut down that perimeter, shut down under the rim, and going to let up that mid-range, especially in the half court when they had time to set their defense. So what was the solution to this? Well, the solution to this for Ohio State actually was play really good defense. I think an announcer said it as I was watching the game. He said the first pass to a transition bucket is the poor shot that goes before it. So Carolina had a lot of poor shots that went before Ohio State transition buckets. Carolina couldn't set up a good perimeter defense or a good low post defense if Ohio State was playing really quickly. And that's what they did to kind of counter Carolina's modern defense. So I've got about 6 clips here, and this is just the ones that Ohio State made. There are actually plenty of transition clips that Ohio State actually missed on the fast break, which was kind of hard to do, but they played they played this way the entire game. They wanted to play fast and not allow Carolina to set that defense. So play really good defense, again, contest the shot. Strong rebound by Dwayne Washington. We talked about that in the stats, how Dwayne Washington was a really strong defensive rebounder in this game. And they play fast. Carden gets the ball, moves immediately, doesn't let Carolina set up that defense for an open three-point shot for Washington, and he nails it. We'll see that a lot in these clips, that Ohio State's really good at turning defense into offense. Next clip. Force a poor shot by Cole Anthony. Defensive rebound by Dwayne Washington. Play quickly. Turn defense into offense. So he made that rebound and he goes down the floor and gets that immediate three-point shot. Again, create a poor offensive shot. This time 2 players from Ohio State contest it. Rebound, play quickly, and lay up under the basket. Now, it's not just that Ohio State's playing fast. They're also doing all the little things really well. Like Liddell here does a really good job of setting the screen, creating an open path for Muhammad to get that layup. Again, Carolina can't set that perimeter defense or that defense under the rim if they just don't have the time to do it. Ohio State do a really good job of playing quickly. Now this is in the second half. Again, force a poor shot. Now look who's contesting this shot. Kyle Young is contesting this shot. Why is that important? Ohio State gets the rebound. Again, it's Dwayne Washington. And look who's down the floor to get that easy layup. That's, again, Kyle Young. After that great contested shot, he's turning defense. There he is. Contest the shot. He's turning defense into offense. That's just good coaching by Ohio State. Making sure their players are drilled to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Again, another poor shot. Blocked easily by Caleb Wesson. Again, rushing up the floor. Again, it's the small things that make Ohio State work. You'll notice that this Carolina player here, number 4, is so concerned about Andre Wesson's three-point shooting that he is scared to contest or to really close down on CJ Walker, who's driving. That opens up the lane for an easy layup. Again, look who's contesting this next shot. Liddell contests the shot. Strong rebound by another guard for Ohio State, this time Carden. He tips it on to Andre Wesson. And look at Liddell running the floor for the easy dunk. So Ohio State did a really good job of turning defense, whether that be rebounding or contesting shots, into easy offense. They're doing the little things really well and not letting Carolina set that defense. Now the next thing I want to do is to show you a couple of miscellaneous observations that I had from this game. The first is Caleb Wesson's screening. Caleb Wesson is actually a really good screener, and it's again these small details that make Ohio State function really well on offense. This one again, he just kind of makes his arms stick out. If you're going to be a really finicky ref, you could really call that it is an offensive foul. But just being sticky as he is, slipping out of that screen, creates way open space for Andre Wesson to shoot an open three-point shot, which he nails. This from the first half. This is just a typical Ohio State slip screen action that they run all the time. Again, if you look at Caleb Wesson's screening stance here, again, you could call it illegal if you wanted. His feet are really wide, way past his shoulders, which is not actually allowed. But again, he just stays really sticky. The play gets stuck on him. He just kind of almost leans forward on him. That creates wide open space as this defensive player for Carolina can't recover. Open mid-range shot from the free throw line for CJ Walker, and they nail it. So, yeah, it's just those small things. Caleb Wesson's a really good offensive screener. Now, the last thing I'm going to point out is Ohio State's just basic bread and butter offense. If you watch the Villanova game, Ohio State did this a lot in the first quarter just to basically kill a Villanova right out the gate, which is basically their just normal slip screen three-point shooting offense. So they'll have a big player set a screen. Go back to the start of this clip. Which clip am I showing? I'll go back to the first one. There we go. Caleb Wesson gets the ball. He sets a screen, slips out of it, and you'll notice that as Andre Wesson goes down there occupying this defender, they'll have a point guard or Andre Wesson this point, one of their other strong, really good three-point shooters. He'll rotate around, and though he misses it, it was a wide open shot. This is just typical Ohio State offense. They're using that threat of the big man. Caleb Wesson's obviously a really good roller to the rim. He can also slip out for a three-point shot, so he occupies a lot of defenders. And they use that advantage to create open shots for other players. So, again, Kyle Young sets a screen. He readjusts. As he goes this way, DJ Carden, one of their guards, is going to go this way. Kyle Young, again, another really good finisher around the rim. He's actually really athletic, dunks all the time. He's going to occupy that Carolina defender. Open three-point shot. So those are the clips I have from this game. Again, we identified the problem that Carolina was giving Ohio State, setting that modern defense with heavy ball pressure around the perimeter and collapsing the defense around the rim. So Ohio State, instead of doing anything tricky on offense, basically they just played really good defense, forced really bad Carolina shots, and then would really rush up and turn defense into offense and get easy transition buckets. And then just a couple of miscellaneous observations in Caleb Wesson's great screening on offense, and Ohio State's bread and butter slip screens on offense as well. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, my email's in the description. If you liked any of the windows you saw in this video, there'll be video walkthroughs and links to purchase them in the description as well. Thank you very much.